A lot of people don't know this yet, but 2025 is the first year in the reign of Gen X. Gen X, baby. What up, though? This is what I mean. In 2025, the oldest of the Gen Xers hit 60. God damn. But what that means is now many Gen Xers from 40 to 60, 45 to 60, they're starting to really finally enter true positions of power. They're starting to really, really make their mark. They're replacing the baby boomers as they reach a certain age and stage in their life, as they start to leave the boardrooms and C-suites and ownership and managerial positions, as they start to divest, as they start to downsize. Much of that wealth, much of that responsibility, much of that power and influence is coming our way. It's our time now, baby. So from about 2025, maybe to 2035 at the earliest, but really probably to 2040, Gen Xers are going to be the ones making the most important decisions in the world. Now, baby boomers will still be in there. They'll still play their part until they're gone, and then even afterwards. And we know millennials, we know they on the creep. They not on the creep, they fully fucking here. But they're not yet truly in positions of power. Baby boomers have held that position for a few decades. But 2025 was the first year of the reign of Gen X. Let's smoke on that one, everybody. We need to celebrate that one. Think about it. Donald Trump will be the last baby boomer president. In 2028, 2032, and increasingly going forward, for the next few presidential elections, they will all be Gen Xers. So you'll have a certain mindset, a certain perspective of the Gen X generation, which I'm from. Now, I'm one of the younger Gen Xers, but still fucking Gen X representing. So this is what you gotta understand, is that for the last few decades, baby boomers, the generation that were the children of the people who fought in the big war, World War II, the war that, devastated the world, their children, those were the boomers. And they looked at the world like, what the fuck are you all doing? You're destroying this planet, and we're going to save it, and we're not going to follow your same bullshit. And you had the 60s and the counterculture, and then you had the radicalness of the 70s and so on, and blah, 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 blah. And then you fast forward, and many of the fucking conservative, laid back, don't want to change anything, status quo people are baby boomers. How the fuck did that happen? It happens because, for some reason, when you're younger, you're a lot more radical. You're a lot more liberal. You're a lot more progressive. You tend to be. You see the world in terms of what could be, and you see the things in the world that need to be fixed, and you say, let's go fix it. And you know who's preventing us from fixing it? Those old people. Get the fuck out of the way. But then when you've gone around the sun a few times, when you've gone around the block once or twice, and you've seen things, and you've seen certain things repeat, then you see the complexity of it all. You start to see how it's not as simple as it seems to fix certain things, to change certain things, the nature of people, politics, money, everything. And so as you get older, you start to want to conservative, you start to want to preserve the good shit in life. You want to protect yourself from the bad shit, because you've seen it. You've seen it at times in your life, but you want to preserve the good shit, protect yourself from the bad shit. And that leads to a little bit more of the status quo, a little bit more of a conservative mindset. So you had these radical ass hippie weed smoking, they used to call it reefer back then, reefer smoking baby boomers who then grew up, went to work, started family, started buying property, yada, 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 and then eventually reached a certain point where they're like, hold on, we don't want this shit, to fall apart. And so you start to lean conservative. But when you're younger, you haven't had that established time frame, that record, that memory, that history of, trial and error, of success and failure. You only know what should be. And then after you've gotten in that ring and you fought against the powers that be, then you're like, all right, there's some battles we can win and some battles we will have to continue to fight. But my point being is Gen Xers, we're the babies of the boomers. So we grew up, now mind this, a lot of people don't know this. The birth control pill came out somewhere in the 60s. In 1960, somewhere in 1960. 1960. So the boomers were the first generation, really, if you really think about it, they were the first generation to actually have a fucking choice. Many of the women, many of the men, but it was the first generation for women to really be able to choose if they want to have a baby. Before, they didn't really have as great of a choice. And so now you pop that pill and blah, 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 stay consistent with it. I don't have to worry about an unexpected pregnancy. I don't have to worry about starting a family. And so it was the boomers in the 60s and the 70s when the pill was introduced. And then a little bit further when Roe v. Wade was accepted. But essentially, it's the boomer generation that was the first generation of women, the first generation of families that had a better chance of deciding if they even wanted to do that. The result of that is that Gen X doesn't have as many people. How could the biggest baby boom in fucking American history at that point produce fewer babies? Because the boomers had more of a choice than the previous generations. Women were entering the workforce and staying in the workforce, whereas in previous generations, they were just replacing men. And then when the men came back, it was like, go back to the fucking kitchen. So now you've got women entering the workforce, staying in the workforce much longer, can have a much greater chance of deciding when she wants to get pregnant, when she wants to start a family, when and how she wants to settle down. The dynamics changed. And so for Gen Xers, we were the latchkey kids. We were the kids that's like, hey, mom and maybe dad, if dad is around for some people. Mom and dad, they're working. Grandma, they can watch you today, but maybe not tomorrow. And so you got to figure out how to eat when we're not home. You got to figure out how to do your homework or wash your ass or protect the house or look after your siblings or whatever. We were the latchkey kids. We were the kids that's like, look, there's a microwave dinner at home. There's something on TV. Mom will be home. Dad will be home by 6 or 7 in the evening. Don't burn shit down. We were that generation. So we have a certain amount of us, a certain amount instilled of us of independence. And, the world is not all good or all bad. It's more so it carries the values of what you put into it. And so now we're finally reaching positions of power. A lot of times, something else people don't really think about. Obviously you have the youth and vigor in your teens and your 20s, maybe in your 30s. It's really in your 40s in a certain way. It's really in your 40s when you reach, I don't want to say your prime in terms of you still got some physical attributes, maybe, but your money, your bread should be a lot better than it was in the 20s. Your bread should be much better than it was in the 20s. You've learned a few things. You've had some life experiences. You should have a stronger foundation to yourself in your 40s and in your 50s. So your 40s and your 50s is kind of like you're not young anymore, but you're young old. You're young old. And so you've got some experience. You've got some history. You've done some things, but you still should have some energy and vitality to do new shit, to learn new shit. So really, it's in your 40s and 50s, I want to say on a certain level that you're at your sweetest. But it ain't really until your 60s that you really finally start reaching that elevated portion in society where your bread is probably at its best, at its best. The investments and different other things, hopefully, over the years are now finally here, and you're like Scrooge McDuck with a pile of gold coins on your fucking table or something. And you've, maybe gone through the business world, you've gone through the work, you've climbed the work ladder, and so now maybe you're in an executive position, maybe, hopefully your ownership, I'm an entrepreneur. But my point being is, youth has got that energy, that vigor, that wide-eyed optimism. They want to take on the world. Then you reach your 30s and 40s and you're like, all right, I'm still here. Let's take on the world. But hold on, I got to pay a few bills first and make sure the kids are tucked in. And then you reach the 40s and 50s and you're like, all right, well, the kids are starting to head off to college and shit. And, now I'm back to doing what I'm doing, whatever. But it's not really until you reach 55, 60, in that age where you're at your most influential, your most powerful, your most impactful age in your life, if you're fortunate enough to make it. So the boomers, many of them are touching their 80s. They're in their 70s. So they've been in that position of power for some decades now. They've made decisions. I mean, even Barack Obama, one of the youngest presidents in American history, is a baby boomer. He's a boomer. So the next few presidents, the next few, quote unquote leaders, icons that we look towards to do certain things to impact the world. Hell, fuck. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, whatever you think about these people, they're fucking Gen X. They're Gen Xers. So you have to realize that for about the next 10 to 15 years, positions of power, transfers of wealth, different perspectives, it's all going to start, for the next few years, it's going to blend. It's going to evolve and go from a Gen X mindset, from a baby boomer mindset, a baby boomer's way to play, the way they drive, the way that they, see the world. And it's going to morph a little bit more into a Gen X vision of the world as they reach certain positions of power. So millennials, you got about 10, 15 years, and then it's your turn to really be in that elevated position of power. So like I said, don't get me wrong, millennials are here. They've been here, doing their thing, impacting shit, fucking shit up. You know what I'm saying? But they, as they rise, they're bumping up on it. They're bumping up on that top spot. But motherfuckers, you gotta wait for us. It's our time now. From 2025 to 2035, from 2025 to maybe 2040, it's time of Gen X. Gen Xers will make the major decisions in the world, make the investments, carry it through, build the infrastructure. We're the grandparents now. I'm not yet. But we're the grandparents now, and so, we're out here, I know this is how your mom and dad do things, but let me tell you how we used to do things. So, like I said, you're going to start to see the world more and more and more from the mindset of someone who grew up in the 70s, someone who grew up in the 80s, someone who, reached their maturity in the 90s. And that's a lot different than someone who grew up in the 50s and the 60s and early 70s. It just is what it is. So boomers, we love you. We know you're still here. Can you please, move out of the way just a tad bit? You're starting to slow down. Reflexes, reactions ain't as quick. Gen X is trying to get through. We trying to get there. We here. We making it happen. We cleaning up your shit so that then we can be in your position as the millennials come clean up our shit. And Gen Alpha and Z and all that other shit, I don't know about that. I don't know if we even still gonna be here. I'm just talking shit. That's what you do when you get older. You talk shit. The world is falling apart and will never last past 5 years after you die or whatever. And the world keeps going on and it keeps getting shittier and more beautiful and more disconnected and more together and everything and nothing all in between. So, but it's funny how when you're younger, you are a tad bit more, piss and vinegar. You're a tad bit more like, move out the way, let's do it. Oh, that story, you might have heard it differently. I first heard it from the movie Colors, 1986, Robert Duvall, and my man, how am I forgetting his name right now? Sean Penn. But great movie. But there's a line in it, the older cop is talking to the younger cop, Duvall's talking to Sean Penn, and he's telling him a story. Because Sean Penn's all full of vigor. He wants to get down there and he wants to bust every criminal, a potential criminal, and save the world all in one night. While fucking some bitches in the meantime. And Duvall's like, hold on, we can do all of that. It just takes time. You gotta do it at the right pace. So he tells them the story, and this is very relatable of young and then getting older, a young perspective and a young perspective. So the story goes like this. You might have heard it differently. A young bull and a older bull are standing at the top of a hill. And they're looking down into the valley or whatever. And they're looking down. And they see a bunch of cows, some nice ones, drinking at the water source, at the river, the lake or whatever. So the young bull says to the old bull, hey old man, let's say we run down there and fuck one of them cows. And then the older bull looks at the younger one and says, I'll tell you this, why don't we walk down and fuck them all? So that's the difference. So for Gen Z, Alpha, whatever fucking other names, for people under 20, 25, they want to get out there. They don't understand how Gen X, boomers, silent generation, they don't understand how we done fucked it up. The world seems so simple to them. They got to figure it out already. And then it takes a little bit older bull to say, no, I feel you. I feel what you're saying. But it takes time. It takes time. To really, really make it happen, it takes time. And so it's our time now, baby. Gen X, 2025, 2035, 2040. Let's make it happen. It's your boy, Gen X. I'll at you.